Welcome to the first edition of Rick and Bubba University, the podcast. In the year of 2021, we've had a 2-week hiatus. It's good to be back. And Bubba, today, we're going to go, we throw a lot of pitches here at RBU. And one of them is that we go inside people connected to the show. We've interviewed all the different members of the Rick and Bubba team. We've interviewed most of the wives, not all, but most of the wives. We've got 2 wives that refuse to come on so far, but we'll eventually wear them down. But today we're going to be talking to John Wilburn, and that last name may sound familiar to lots of the Rick and Bubba fans, or if you're new and this is the only Rick and Bubba experience that you have, our producer for, Bubba, 26 of the 27 years?
Oh, yeah. 26 and a half, probably.
Calvin Wilburn, but you know him better as Speedy.
Speedy.
We are going to interview his dad today, John Wilburn. So, Mr. Wilburn, welcome to Rick and Bubba University.
Well, thank you. A great day. I appreciate being here, guys. Thank you so much.
Well, it's a pleasure. You have we want to get into, we've talked about on the big show, that you have become a children's book author, and we're going to get into that because the latest book in the series has been released. But I want to start out talking a little bit about you, because you have a fascinating story, Speedy's talked about on the show that you have issues with your sight, and sadly some of that has gotten worse and deteriorated. But it really, in an interesting way, was used to save your life. There may not have been a Speedy, and of course you have a daughter named Lynn that may have never existed. If this problem with your eyes had not revealed something that was very dangerous. So tell those that are listening to this or watching today this fascinating story.
Okay, sure will. Well, yeah, I've always had in my early days just a fantastic eyesight. As a matter of fact, when I was a senior in high school, I drove a school bus. But right the summer after I graduated, I started noticing I've started having some extremely bad headaches, didn't pay a lot of attention to them, and went on to college, my first semester at Mississippi State University, and I began having just what's that word?
Excruciating.
Yeah, that's it. Headaches. It got worse and worse, and then one day about mid-semester, a guy came up to me and said, "Boy, you sure are stuck up." And I said, "Why?" He said, "Because I was waving at you over here and you never responded." I said, "Well, man, I didn't see you." And anyway, long story short is that it got really bad, and I wanted to enter into the ROTC advanced program. And so they had a physical where some doctors from the naval facility over in Columbus, Mississippi, came over and performed the physical. And I did not pass the colorblind test, which was surprising to me. And a young Navy doctor told me to the side, he said, "You might ought to go back home and get your family doctor to check you because there's something going on in your head up there. We don't know what it is." So in those days, the semester ended the middle of January, not Christmas like it does now. And I was having some really bad problems. So I went down there, and my dad took me to the old family doctor that actually delivered me, way back when. And he, of course, he's just we're talking about January of 1959. So we went there and he examined it, he got the light, looked in my eyes and my ears and all that good stuff. And he said, and he told my dad, he said, "There's something major wrong here." And he said, "It just so happened that a colleague of mine I went to medical school with, who was a neurosurgeon in San Francisco, just happens to be right now in Mobile, Alabama, performing a seminar to some young doctors." He said, "Let me see if I can get in touch with him and have him do me a favor, because he's the best, to examine your son." So we waited in the lobby, and sure enough, God worked a miracle. He got this guy on the phone. And so my doctor came back out and told my dad in front of me, he said, "Hey, y'all go to Mobile right now. Don't even go home and get any clothes. Buy him some pajamas at Woolworths."
Wow.
So we took off, and he examined me. And of course, nowadays, it's a quick CT scan or PET scan or something like that. But back then they didn't have all those good things. And so he examined me. It took a week, and they wound up, it's kind of wild. They had to shoot some air into my head through some holes they drilled in my brain, in my skull,
my goodness,
to make air present where X-ray or whatever they call it would reveal whatever. And when they did that, they noticed I had an extraordinary large tumor over in my right lobe of my brain. And it had at that time pretty much wiped out because things go,
opposite sides.
Opposite sides. Yeah. So it wiped out my optic nerve to my left eye, and it was damaging my right eye. So he said, we need to go in there and take care of this like right now. So they did, and he came back out and he said, well, the good news is that it was enclosed in some kind of a pouch, a cyst of some kind. We think we got it all, but it was malignant. So we don't know. We think we did. We don't know. So they, I was in a hospital for about another 2 weeks getting healed up. Of course, my eyesight was pretty much shot, but I could see out of my right eye to some degree, enough to drive and enough to go back to school. And I did all that good stuff. And anyway, and then over the years, it began to deteriorate just slowly over the years. Nothing they could do about it because it's my optic nerve, my brain, not my external eyeball,
Right.
So anyway, and that was pretty much what happened to it. And so like I've told people for over the years, I said, if it wasn't for the grace of God, I wouldn't be here.
Yeah, your story is one of those things, even as you struggled with your eyesight, it has to be always kind of putting you back in the center of the road to think, well, but it was this eyesight problem that was used to save my life.
Exactly. Well, my dear dad, bless his heart, I mean, he was just a fine man, finest man as you could be. And when I came home from college, when I finished my last semester there at college, I came home and I was pretty just down. I'm not a down person, but I was kind of down. And this is what he called me, Hoss. He said, "Hey, Hoss." He said, "Hey, Hoss, come here." So I went over. He said, and this is all he said, and it's stuck with me forever. And it's just what you're saying, Rick. He said, there's a silver lining in every cloud. And he had no idea how prophetic that statement was.
Well, it's, I was listening to the story and some of these wonderful things. Can you imagine, Bubba, when you think about John Wilburn, when he said, and you made a motion to me, he was driving a bus for the school as a senior.
I know.
In high school.
Can you imagine?
Where have those days gone on the work ethic and the responsibility you could give a senior in high school to drive the school bus? And then you threw Woolworth out there. The famous Woolworth department stores. That really takes us back to a much different time. All right, so we're gonna take a quick break, and then we're gonna come back. We're gonna jump in next to you're tied to the show and what it's like to be the dad of Speedy Wilburn, and then and we'll come back in a third segment and we'll talk about the latest in the Larry the Leaf series. We're gonna talk about where Larry the Leaf came from. The success of the first book, and let everybody know that the second book in the series is now available. We'll tell you more about that when Rick and Bubba University, the podcast, continues. All right, we're back. John Wilburn is our guest. That is Speedy's dad. So let's talk a minute about that. When you started thinking about Speedy and what is it like to be Speedy's dad, when he started working with this show, I've never really talked to you about this, and that's why I love this podcast. What were your thoughts about Speedy stepping into the world of radio and ultimately the world of Rick and Bubba?
Well, it was kind of like it was almost like an answer to prayer in a way, because when he first went to JSU, and went through the college, and then a few times we went there, and he was doing a little, I think, for the college radio station, little disc jockeys type stuff. But he was still trying to basically, in my opinion, find himself, so to speak, And whenever he told me he was working for you guys, correct me if I'm wrong, but I think initially wasn't he called Speed Racer?
That's correct. Yeah, Speed Racer, the full name. Yeah.
When we got him out of Speedy's Playhouse.
That's what it read exactly. And I can remember thinking, well, okay. And you guys, I knew were grounded in Christianity. You love the Lord. And I said, well, it's going to be great for him, because he was raised that way. He just like everybody else, wanted to go sow a few wild oats a little bit, but I said, that's fantastic. And then I began to just watch him develop over the years. And I can remember way back at y'all's beginning, 27, 26 years ago, don't they have some kind of a monument or a statue in Gadsden with like something with a finger missing on a statue?
Yes,
yeah. It's actually a statue of a little girl from the Civil War called Emma Sansom.
Oh, okay.
Or if you want to say it right, Emma Sampson.
Right,
and,
Emma Sampson.
Yeah, that's so funny. Everybody gives us a hard time about that. And they've had a high school named after her there. It's not there anymore. And and it was in the monument had her pointing to Black Creek River. Was that right?
Yeah,
Creek.
She was showing the troops where to forge the river.
Yeah, to try
or
to
the creek. It was a creek, but
part of the river, probably the Mighty Coosa. And so her finger was prominent because it's pointing to where they should cross. And somebody broke the finger off of the statue, and so we, as a show, were trying to find the finger.
Yeah, well, that was so fun. You're doing all kind of things in terms of, I guess, to create a show and make it interesting for everyone. But I remember listening to it of course, you didn't reach out very far back in those days at that little small station, I guess, but we would drive into the area where you could pick the frequency up. And I remember one time where Speed Racer was out trying to look for clues to find the missing finger and all those kind of things. And it developed from there. But I just appreciate, we were very thankful. Because he became more and more mature, settled down, a lot of responsibility, because we did a lot of praying for God to give him the gift of responsibility.
And you mean a lot.
A lot. And but he began to develop, and here we are today. So that's kind of it, really.
Yeah, that was a big promotion back then. We called it, "Hey, Rick and Bubba, give us the finger."
Yeah, it was that's what it was called. Give us the finger. We were trying to find it to get it back. So and we talked about this with all of our family members, and you're certainly in this position. Mm-hmm. Has there ever been? Did it ever get old to you and your wife and your daughter, or get uncomfortable that your lives are? I mean, they're broadcast to a lot of people. I mean, we've talked to you on the show many times. Speedy's mentioned things that go on with the family. Did that take some getting used to?
It took some getting used to, but we didn't mind it because the way it was handled, the way it was done in good. Good taste, so to speak. But it took a little time to get used to it because to turn on the radio, of course, Huntsville's a big audience, and turn on the radio and just all of a sudden hear your name mentioned. Said, whoa, So, but it's okay. We're cool,
Well, everybody on the show, their family has kind of become a household name.
Yep.
They because we got 4 hours to fill every day, so everything's on the table
for a long time. What about when we used to do the Speed Racer adventures? And you mentioned one, but we sent him out, and he did some pretty dangerous things. Did you or Mama ever say, "Hey, I don't know that you need to let him talk you into that"?
Well, I was a little concerned at the time he did the skydiving deal, that I said, whoa, but and what was another one that
I didn't like Buried Alive.
Yeah, Buried
Alive. That makes me nervous.
I didn't care for that. And the one that used to tickle me the most is when he and Mickey Dean and Don Juan would go on these ghost hunting trips or whatever.
Yes.
Halloween.
Oh, yes.
Those were funny.
Yeah.
There's a lot of different things he did. And the one that kind of, wasn't it like a Kiss concert where he jumps on the stage and gets into a wrestling match with a security guard or something? I forget what that was.
Yeah, that was kind of more of a Speedy thing than a show bit.
You have that 100% correct. I didn't know you would grab that one and bring that one back, but no, that absolutely happened. We looked up on the stage, and there he was. There he was next to Ace Frehley. And he did have a bit of a tussle with security. He said the only time that he was really, when we interviewed him, even on RBU, he said the only time that he really said, I gotta back out of this, was the climbing of the water tower.
Oh yeah, that got him
in Nashville. Yeah,
I didn't like that one either.
Yeah, that got him because of when that ladder, I guess, kind of began to wiggle or whatever happened to it. Oof, that was tough, and I think that affected his psyche for a while.
Yeah, I agree with you 100%.
No, I did enjoy the Russian jet that he went.
The Russian,
that was fun, and the dog attack.
Dog attack. I heard that on the Best of show this past.
Yeah, those were dandies.
And the swimming with a shark deal.
Oh yeah. Oh, and you know what, Rick? We forgot when we shot at him in the storm shelter.
There's one. Wow. Ooh. Oh, we forgot about that?
Yeah.
Yeah.
You know, I forgot we shot guns at him.
I did too.
And we tried to blow it away with 300-mile-an-hour wind. We ran a car into it.
Yeah.
Oh,
That was a pretty big day.
That was big.
Just realize I'm not getting a talent fee for this.
So there has to be a moment, now when somebody says, "Oh, is your son the one that that ran across a pro-am golf tournament?"
Oh yeah.
Are we going to leave that one out?
Well, yeah.
No, we're not going to leave it out. But I thought, oh my Lord.
Is that one of those where you said, "Call me when the show's over today"?
Yeah.
Exactly. I'll tell you another one too that I really got tickled when he broke into the Georgia Dome.
Oh,
yeah.
yeah.
Ran 100 yards.
And he got arrested and had to. I forget the details there, but that was
exciting.
That was something.
Yeah, that sometimes there's no hard feelings. I don't feel any from you.
Oh no, not at all.
You said whatever for the show, I guess.
Whatever for the show, and he's y'all have I guess discipled him, mentored him very nicely, which we've always just thank God for, and he's come a long ways and he's a fantastic. You see how he hovers over us. He makes sure his mom and dad are okay, especially since we're 80 years old now, so he watches over us pretty strong. We appreciate that so much.
Well, we've said it before. It's really good to have him on your team. I mean, he's got a gift set of looking after people, and he's a great husband and a great father, which has to. If
when he greets you, you feel like you are the top of the world. Really. And we call him an overgreeter, but he really makes you feel good.
Now, you never attended Calvin's Playhouse, right? I mean, you never saw that when he was.
I never saw that. No.
Okay, well, and see, there's God working again.
Yeah, there.
But
amen.
But the one thing I want to ask you too, because your wife's quite the character on the show too. And I'm wondering because Speedy was talking about everywhere she goes she makes friends and she becomes when she went through her cancer treatment she became the life of the party.
One of the friendliest people you'll ever meet.
Here's what I'm wondering.
Exactly.
Did Speedy get his over greeting from his mother?
Well, he may have.
It's a different kind of greeting.
It is.
Yeah.
She's so friendly with people. I mean, we'll go to a grocery store, and the first lady, she says, "Oh, your hair looks great," and you can see it just brighten up that person. And she didn't know who that person is. Another. She didn't say that to a guy though.
Well, it is Speedy. I mean, Speedy. He greets people wherever he goes. He's never met a stranger, and he'll overgreet. Now his topic choices are different at times, but
All right.
So we're going to come back and we're going to talk about this new journey. That you started being now you've been writing for a while and we'll talk about that. But these children's books that have become a big hit on the show, the Larry the Leaf series. So we're going to come back. We'll unpack that with our guest today, John Wilburn, on Rick and Bubba University, the podcast. All right, so Bubba, let's just tell those that are enjoying Rick and Bubba University, the podcast right now, because we can be friends with them. The odds are that they are paying too much for their automobile insurance and their home insurance.
What does it hurt to check?
You're right. You might as well know because, Bubba, you did it. I've done it. I pretty much just knew because I was trying to get a mortgage on a house that they required insurance that I needed to get. So, I called the same insurance company my parents had used. I did the same thing with the first automobile that I've ever purchased. And you pretty much stay with these people, but you never really check to see if you're overpaying. That's why Gabby can come to the rescue. Would you like to put in your pocket this year an extra $961? Well, that's how much Gabby customers save per year on average on car and home insurance. That's why if you're shopping for insurance like we did, use Gabby because it's so simple. You just go to Gabby.com, Okay, you go there right now, GABI.com. You want to then hit a slash and put Rick Bubba, GABI.com/Rick Bubba. I mean, minutes. You give them a little bit of information they need on your insurance. Then they'll pull up 40 different companies, and all the big names are there, Progressive, Nationwide, Travelers, and all the others. And then they show you, these companies, what they want you to pay for the exact same coverage. Remember, we're not asking you to downgrade the coverage. It's the exact coverage, apples to apples, and then you look what they're charging versus what your current insurance company is charging. And you know what you do? You decide if your insurance company's paying you, ask you to pay too much. And if it's worth the switch, and I think, $960 on average would be worth the switch, then you make the switch. It's really that simple. And if it's not, then you just keep the insurance you have. You're probably overpaying. So check out. There's no obligation to do anything, and it's free. GABI.com/Rick Bubba. That's GABI.com/Rick Bubba. John Wilburn is our guest, Speedy's dad, on this edition of Rick and Bubba University, the podcast. We've gone back through his life testimony, which is fascinating. We've talked about what it's been like to have a son on the Rick and Bubba show in the role that Speedy plays for our team. And one of the things that Speedy brought to our attention one day was, hey, my dad's written a children's book. That caught us a little off guard, Mr. Wilburn, because you'd been in the stockbroking business, right?
Oh, yeah, I enjoyed the financial world quite a bit. Yeah, yes. I finally walked out of it, retired in 2012, I guess it was. And the only reason why I left then is because I couldn't see the computer anymore.
Well, I know you've taught Speedy to really watch every penny.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, he always leaves his wallet in the car,
Well, boy, that son of a gun's tight.
He must be sitting on a pile.
It gotta be.
He's got the first dime he made.
Yeah,
well, you've done a great job teaching him to be responsible.
We're joking, of course.
So Larry the Leaf. First of all, your desire and love of writing was not something new, right? You had always dabbled a little bit in writing. Yes, no.
Yeah, a little bit. Real quickly. What I guess I could go back to a starting point. Of all times, it was a freshman in high school. The first day we walked into class, the English class, I never forget, her name was Miss Thompson, and she walked around and gave everybody an object, and told them before the bell rang they had to write a 300-word overview of what they had in their hand. And she walked up and she gave me a pipe cleaner. But you clean the old smoking pipes.
Oh yeah.
And so I had to write words about a pipe cleaner, what I thought about a pipe cleaner and the different aspects of a pipe cleaner. But it gets your imagination really rolling, and I didn't write too much after that. But that I can go back to that point, but as time went along, probably going back 25, 30 years ago, I started just kind of sitting around writing poems. I kind of started off on poems, just doing a lot of that. And then one day about 4 years ago, I just sat down at this old dinosaur computer we had at the house, and I couldn't see too much, but I began kind of picking with my right index finger. I think what was is it called the Word something on
Word,
Microsoft?
Yeah, Word document. Is that it?
Yeah. Anyway, I started picking around, and I don't know why I wound up writing the word leaf, and then I started just kind of playing around with that, and then one thing led to the another, and I started kind of creating a little story about this leaf in a tree and all of his animal buddies, and it just kind of started rolling, and I finished it and left it just in the computer there. And then one day, our granddaughter Johnette came to visit, and she was sitting at the old computer, and she happened to notice it, and she spun around and said, "Hey, who wrote this?" And I said, "Well, I did." She said, "Wow, we need to do something about this." And that's she found actually 2 or 3 different publishing houses that had accepted the manuscript, and I chose the one we have now, Christian Faith Publishing. But that's kind of how it got started.
So the audience has always wanted to know, is Speedy the Leaf?
Well, he was kind of the leaf in the first book, the original book, I guess.
Yeah.
So I guess you could say he couldn't shed that role. I guess he still is, but this has got some events in this Larry Leaf and the Thieves that, well, I guess in a way he's kind of a handler,
Yeah.
So
yeah. Well, I thought the first one where Larry had got a DJ set up and started doing parties. I thought that's kind of where it led me to think it might be Speedy.
That was it. It was kind of funny. I wrote a Larry the Leaf and the surprise birthday party, and when in my super duper skills on a computer, after I'd finished it, I thought it was really great. I was going to submit it, and I deleted the whole cotton picking thing.
You got to be kidding me.
No, can't find it. Don't know where it is.
Well, that could be book number 3.
Yeah, I don't know where it is, but I don't know what happened.
Should have saved it automatically, I would think.
Yeah, I would
have thought we've gone inside and out, and Speedy tried to help me find it just a good while back, and we just can't find it. I don't know what I did.
Well, you can't even have a book.
No.
So the first one, because some people who are watching this or listening to this may not even be aware of the first one. So it's Larry the Leaf, and it's available if you go to Amazon and you look for Larry the Leaf by John C. Wilburn, and you'll see that, and that's from Christian Faith Publishing. But now, and I forget, how many years between the first book and now this new one?
Probably because the second one, the new one, got delayed because of this pandemic thing.
Mm-hmm.
But it's probably close to 2.5, 3 years between the books.
And what was the response to the first one? Obviously, they asked you to. I think we've answered our own question. Publishers don't ask you to write a second book if the first one was a dud.
That's true.
But were you surprised? I mean, it was quite a response to it.
I was, yeah. I mean, it wasn't enormous, but it was very good because the publisher told me directly that it was unusual to have this much response to a first-time unknown author. So I said, well, okay, cool. But I tell you what, the time that y'all invited me to be in your studio to promote that first book, it really had a great impact. I think probably, I don't know how many, maybe close to 1,000 of your listening people wound up buying the book.
Well,
awesome.
and this is going to happen on this one too. The new one is called Larry the Leaf and the Thieves. So tell us a little bit what happens. We don't have to give the whole book away, but what's happening with Larry?
What's Larry done now?
What's going on?
Well, it's kind of an interesting book. My imagination started kind of going bonkers with me on this, but so I was sitting around one day and thinking, well, what can Larry the Leaf do while he's still in Max the maple tree? He's still up there. He's alive and well, and so it began to come to me. So I'm not going to give you the whole story, but Larry notices that the family, there's a family with a little girl and a dog that live right adjacent to the woods, and he notices they leave to go to town or somewhere, so the house is vacant. And when they leave, the book shows the detail that the daddy turns on the radio in the car, and the first thing that comes out of the radio is an alert that there are thieves in the county that's breaking and entering homes, and everybody should be alert. And that's all you hear. But Larry doesn't know this. And so he's up in the tree and minding his own business. And a little later on, one of the characters, Molly the Bluebird, flies up and lands next to him and says, "Hey, I just saw the strangest thing on the other side of the pasture, on the other side of the woods, where that logging trail comes to a dead end." And said, "What's that?" "I saw 2 weird looking guys on a motorcycle ride up and hide their bike." And, oh, okay. So long story again, without getting the whole thing, well, Larry was curious about this. He doesn't know about the thieves. So we send Sammy the squirrel off to see if he could find these people and see what they look like and come back and give him a report. So he runs and he finds them, and he comes back and said, "Doesn't look too good. One of them's carrying a crowbar. And they look a little weird, and they're kind of wandering in this direction." And so anyway, so they have some other people go and eavesdrop, and they find out that these guys really are headed to the farmhouse to rob it.
Uh-oh.
And so that's kind of how it gets going. And I'll give you one funny excerpt in it. To me, it's funny, even though I wrote it. 2 of the characters, Sammy the squirrel and Randy the raccoon. All right. And so right in the middle of all the controversy with the thieves, and you'll have to read that, it's kind of neat. Larry tells these two characters, he said, go into the house, go down through the chimney, get into the house, and you'll find a thing called a telephone. And this is what one looks like. And he said, I want y'all to go dial 911. And Sammy says, but Larry, we don't know our numbers yet.
Yeah.
And so it is kind of funny. So anyway, they get in there, and of course he tells them, if you take the receiver off, he explains all that, and you hear a buzzing noise. And he said, well, you don't need to know the numbers. There's 3 rows of buttons. On the top left is what we call a 1. And on the bottom right is what we call a 9. So he says, Randy, you jump on the 9 one time, and Sammy, you hit the 1 2 times. So they do that. And of course, the dispatch operator answers it. And, what's your emergency? And she keeps, they don't say anything. I mean, they're just growling, whatever. And so she turns around to her boss. He said, strangest thing, we got an emergency call, but all I hear is animal sounds. That's one little excerpt in there. And of course, you got Freddie. He's I call him a Sergeant B. He's the head of the bees.
Oh, yeah.
And he gets involved, and it gets kind of wild. Of course, you got Milton, the black bear, and you got Dave the deer. He's got a good head of antlers.
I see that.
And so they kind of get after him, and it's a whole deal. And of course, the family comes back home, and the police show up, and it's interesting. It's interesting, and I want it to be interesting and fun, but I also want to try to teach children things if I can in it. So one of the first things that happens in the book is that the little girl, Katie, and her dog Skippy are in the back seat, and I go through the process of them putting on seatbelts. And just, if a kid's reading this, well, that'll register in their brain a little bit. And then Katie asked her daddy said, okay, if I say a prayer for Skippy because we're taking him to the vet. So, prayer is important. So I kind of blend that in. And then right before the attack on the thieves, Max, the maple tree, calls all the animals around to come to him where they can develop a plan to what can they do about these thieves. And they go through all that. You'll read that. But just before they go charging off to execute their plan, Max says, wait a minute, well, we need to ask the Lord to bless our efforts and give us wisdom and so forth. So I try to incorporate those things in there for, because that's what it's all about,
Larry the Leaf and the Thieves. It is the latest in the Larry the Leaf series. John Wilburn, Speedy's dad, is the author. You can get that at Amazon. We'll come back and tell you more about that when Rick and Bubba University, the podcast, continues. All right, does it make sense that the same company who controls half of the online retail also passively eavesdrops on your private conversations at home? I don't like the sound of that, Bubba. I mean,
no.
What about the idea that a single company controls 90% of internet searches, runs your email service, and gets to track everything you do on your smartphone?
That's a lot of information in one place.
Yeah, I mean, we're giving them too much power. How about big tech is more powerful than most countries are, and they profit by exploiting your, Bubba, and mine, and those of you that are listening to this, your personal data. It's time to put a layer of protection between your online activity and the tech juggernauts. It's time to do that, and that's why we love ExpressVPN. Now, I want you to think about how much of your life you spend on the internet. Sadly, every site you visit, video you watch, or message you send gets tracked, and it's something called data mined. They mine that data.
Yep.
But if you run ExpressVPN on your device, and this is easy to use, even I can do it, the software hides your IP address, something the big tech tries to find because they want to personally identify you. But ExpressVPN makes your activity harder to trace and to sell to advertisers. ExpressVPN also encrypts 100% of your internet data to keep you safe from hackers and these eavesdroppers on your network. It does it all without slowing your connection. I know that's what I was worried about, but it doesn't slow it at all. ExpressVPN, that's why they're rated #1, the #1 VPN service by CNET and Wired, and we love it because it's easy to use. Download the app on your phone or computer, tap one button. You know what, Bubba? You're done.
There you go.
You're done. So stop handing over your personal data to big tech. It's a monopoly, and they're mining your activity, and they're selling your information. Protect yourself with the VPN that we trust to keep us safe online. ExpressVPN.com/Rick Bubba. That's EXPRESS VPN.com/Rick Bubba. We're going to get you an extra 3 months for free. ExpressVPN.com/Rick Bubba right now to learn more. Rick and Bubba University, the podcast. This is the first one of 2021, and we've started it with a bang. We got Speedy's daddy on here. It is John Wilburn, and he has retired from the work he did in the financial community. And in 2012, started kind of piddling around with writing and has written a series of children's books. We introduced Larry the Leaf, the first one, and now the second one is out, and it's Larry the Leaf and the Thieves. It just released. You can get it by going to Amazon and searching Larry the Leaf and the Thieves, and you can just look for John C. Wilburn and Christian Faith Publishing, and you can get you a copy. And, it's one of these things that I think about, Mr. Wilburn, is, having 5 children and Bubba, you having children. I can remember one of the things that we enjoyed, and we still talk about them to this day, Good Night Moon and all these things. We would sit down with our kids when they were learning, to start to figure out what it's, about reading and letters and pictures. And you sit down with them and you put them in your lap and you read a good children's book with them. But I will say there was a time when there was some pretty good stuff out there. But now, just like everything else, the things that we're exposing small children to, just because something says it's a children's book, be sure and vet that out. And what I love about this is a throwback to when you sat down with your child and you opened up a children's book, and it really was a children's book with some things that they needed to start learning and you could enjoy together.
All right.
So let's talk about what's next for you. Are you going to continue with this series, or are there other things that you feel like God's calling you to? Now, first of all, I got to ask this question. With the issues with your eyesight, which we talked about to begin with, what is the process of you writing a book? How do you do it mechanically?
Well, that's a very good question. Not able to write per se like you and everybody else. On my iPhone, there's well, let me give it to you in 2 parts. But on my iPhone, there's what they call a note app. Mm-hmm. And I'll do everything on my note app, even though it's just really there for notes, not for writing books. But the way it is formatted and set up is easier for me to use, and I do it all by voice. And so I'll just speak in the sentences, the words one word at a time, the sentences and so forth. And then at some point in time, I'll get probably Becky, my wife, or Johnette to read through it to make sure, see if it kind of picked up my work. Because you know what, that app doesn't understand Alabama English too good.
No, and I noticed something that I can't let go here. You mentioned your wife and you mentioned your daughter. You did not mention Speedy editing it at all.
Well, I tell you, I thought about that. Now he's kind of really come into the play to help me with a lot. But initially, he was so busy with the show with you guys and driving back and forth to Tennessee with the Titans and whatever else going on. I just didn't want to just throw another log on the fire there. That's the only reason.
You know what? That was a very diplomatic
It was.
Gosh,
that was. And I know he's not coming up and cutting your grass as much as you like.
No.
Especially that backyard.
He could come a few more times.
Yeah. So
there's some animals in the backyard.
well, Bubba and I don't do it as much as Bubba has tried for the reason that I see, these things that you speak into. When we're talking, and you mentioned that, you have to have somebody look at it because it's great technology, but it doesn't always hear us the right way.
No, there's an app that's really designed for what I do, but I can't handle it that very well. It's called Pages, is the name of the app, and it's set up to write essays, books, things of that nature. But it's a few more steps involved. And it's just harder for me to negotiate. So I always kind of fall back on the good old quote notes, end quote.
Whatever works. Whatever works.
What about the first time? Because we've read some of your poetry. You also do poetry.
Oh, I do. I enjoy that. I enjoy poetry. In fact, you probably didn't read it, but I wrote one just recently. I gave to Speedy called "Adios 2020."
Boy, I tell you, there's a lot of people will join you in quoting that one.
You don't have to have that handy when we get Speedy to read it real quick, do you? I know he's there.
Yeah, I got it handy. It's on my phone on notes.
Well, just tell him come in there and sit down over your shoulder and give us a read on that one.
You got to find it, son.
Speedy, if you can find Adios 2020, I know you're there helping.
Are you there? Are you in the room?
Yes, sir.
Tell him that we want him to find Adios 2020 on your phone.
Oh, they want you to find Adios 2020 on your phone. You may have it on your phone.
Yes, sir.
But what about the first time you're listening, okay, Mr. Wilburn?
Yeah.
And we have one of your poems, and we decide that we're going to let Greg Burgess read it.
Oh, yeah. He does a good job.
You know what? There's something about the team of you and Greg that works.
It is. I get the biggest joy and kick out of Greg reading my poems. That's fantastic. Yeah.
Yeah. So are you like the rest of us? I think we all.
I just sent it to the team, guys.
Oh, did you really? Okay. So is it? All right, Bubba. See, I'm looking to see if I have Adios 2020 on here.
Yeah.
So I think that's a sentiment that we all had. Yeah. Now I know that we've all been lured into a bit of a delusion just because the dates change.
Yeah, that date was just set up by a Roman dictator at one time. It really doesn't mean we start over. It's not like an inning or a set in tennis. It's just kind of a calendar date, really.
But it felt good, didn't it, for us to change that number?
Yeah. We all were trying to we needed a goal out there, Rick, and we didn't need it to be complicated.
All right, so ask Speedy. Did he text it to me? Is that what I should be looking for?
Yeah, he did.
Okay.
He did.
And so you got Adios 2020 over, Bo?
Yeah, I want to watch. I do.
Okay, all right. Let me see what I got here. I think I've got Adios coming here in a minute. So if you have it, Bubba, you can read it. Do you want to read it to us?
I thought Speedy was going to read it. I thought that was the whole purpose.
Hey, Mr. Wilburn, tell Speedy we want him to read it.
Hey, Speedy.
Yes, sir.
They want you to read the Adios 2020.
Yes, sir.
All right, Speedy. Read it to us.
Yes. Adios 2020.
Can you hear him?
Yes, sir.
Yeah, you got to lean down just a little more, Speedy, so we can see you.
All right, there we go.
I've got the antibodies, just so y'all know.
Okay, yeah.
2020 has left us a lot in its wake, and we gladly wave bye-bye. As it fills our rearview mirror, we let out a big sigh. It brought us turmoil, COVID-19, election fraud, and corruption. It caused much heartache and loss and gangs hell-bent on destruction. But wait, it was not a year of just darkness and pain. There was rays of hope, healing, and joy that broke through the dark clouds and rain. Cancer was defeated, books were written, and people became spiritually alive. Yes, 2020 brought us to our knees, yet as Americans, we can and will continue to grow, doing more than just to survive.
And at that time,
Adios 2020.
Adios 2020. And at that time, let's be honest, Mr. Wilburn.
Yeah.
You didn't know Biden was going to win.
No,
but
I kind of figured it was because of what was going on, but I didn't know.
Well, but thank you. I mean, you have, and if you've never followed Speedy's dad on Twitter, you always do a good job of trying to keep people, inspired and yep. Hey, you know what you're doing? You're living out what your dad told you. When you had the issue with your eye, there's always.
That's true. That is so true.
You keep trying to put that silver lining out there for everybody to enjoy, and you have been a great sense of joy for all of us on the team. Thank you for your not taking yourself too serious, always being willing to come on and cut up with us a little bit. And
y'all are great.
Yeah, and thank you for the job that you obviously you and your wife have done with your son. He's has been an asset for us through all these many years and all the things we've been through. And the things that are still to come. So thanks for taking time to be on with us. If you're looking for the books, they are available on Amazon. Larry the Leaf. There's the original. If you've never, go ahead and get them both if you've never had that. And if you read the first one and you were anxiously awaiting for the second one, it is Larry the Leaf and the Thieves. And you can get that also by going to Amazon and just search Larry the Leaf. You'll see both of those books there by John C. Wilburn. It's published by Christian Faith Publishing. So, Mr. Wilburn, thanks.
If I could insert real quick,
Sure.
The third book's title is going to be Larry the Leaf and the Adventure at the County Fair.
Oh, so you already got it. Hey, I'm already
Larry's going on the road.
Larry the Leaf and the Adventure of the County Fair. Bubba, that may be one based on you and me.
I haven't gotten much further than the title and the intro, but it's probably at least a year away, but
Yeah. Well, thanks.
You got to start.
Yeah. I appreciate you taking time to be with us. Speedy, thank you for going up there and working this out technologically. And thanks to all of you for joining us on the first edition of 2021 of Rick and Bubba University, the podcast.